He is a reporter for ESPN. We welcome Eric Woodyard onto Hoopsology. How's it going, Eric?
Man, how you doing, man? Thank you for getting my last name right, because everybody calls me Woodyard and it's starting to
Uh-oh.
annoy me a little bit. So I appreciate you getting that right.
No problem.
You started off on the right track, man.
No worries. People call me good man. They call
Yeah.
me all kinds of different things, so no worries at all. Um, we wanted just to pick your brain because you're pretty knowledgeable about the NBA, and this is unlike any other NBA season in history. So we
Right.
just want to get your perspective. So just as a overall picture, can you just give your opinion regarding how has the NBA handled COVID so far, just regarding the league being out of the bubble and now pretty much traveling on a normal travel schedule on airplanes and et cetera? How do you think the league has handled it so far?
I think they've done a really, really good job. I was really concerned, with them being outside of a bubble. They could kind of obviously you can't control COVID, but I feel like in the bubble, they had a really, really great opportunity to control the situation as best as possible. And I was worried about that going into this year. But the league has been very, very thorough. I mean, you look at the James Harden situation and most recently the Chicago situation where,
Yes.
Chandler Hutchison tested positive for COVID. But on top of that, just for the tracing and everything, his teammates, Larry Markkinen, Ryan Arcidiacono, Thomas Satoransky, those three guys were held under the protocol. So I think it's been very, very consistent. And I can point to Chicago and several other cases as well. When Garrett Temple tested positive in November. And then you look at his other teammates, Noah Vonleh that was waived, after testing positive. And Satoransky was also had to do a 9-day quarantine during the preseason as well. And Luke Kennett and two-way guard Devin Dotson. So that's just a team that's handled it well. And I think league-wide, that just shows how thorough they are, where if anybody, even remotely they think is capable of catching COVID, they've been right on top of it. So I think the league has done a very, very, very good job.
Is there any concern in your mind that we might encounter a NFL situation or even with college football that when we get into the deep part of the season in which we have lots of just, positive COVID cases, we see players gone for multiple games and that affects the outcome of who makes the playoffs? Is that any concern of yours?
Definitely it's a concern. I mean, I forget, I haven't been as engaged in football as this year because I'm with basketball, but I think the
Sure.
Saints just had a couple running backs. Am I correct about that? A
I'm
few
not
running backs.
sure.
I think I just read that, man. It was either the Saints or the Ravens, one of them. But I know, they had some people that was like their running back core was out. So I mean, definitely that's going to affect, somebody is healthy or not. Because this is something that we can't control. We've never saw this, so I definitely think in all sports, this is going to be a concern, honestly.
hmm Shifting to what's happened on the court, one observation that I've noticed is tons of blowouts,
Right.
massive blowouts. Is there any concern that might linger through the latter parts of the season, or do you think it's just a factor of teams not playing basketball for a long time? I mean, the majority of the league, I know there's a lot of focus on the bubble, but the majority of the league wasn't playing. So this is
Yeah.
their first real life action in a long time. Is that a contributing factor as to why we're seeing these blowouts?
Yeah, definitely, man. And that was a concern I asked actually Milwaukee Bucks coach Mike Budenholzer about that. And he said that as well. Like, guys they aren't in shape all the way. I mean, they had to rush right back into a season without a full training camp. The off season was rushed. So even just getting to know their teammates, like say adding a Drew Holiday or adding a big piece to the roster, they didn't really get a time to really get adjusted. So I think guys are still getting acclimated. You even look at some of the top guards. I was looking at some numbers on just Damian Lillard and Steph Curry and Donovan Mitchell and Luka Doncic. They all kind of got off to a slow start. So I think they'll be fine. They're professionals. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's reality. I mean, guys didn't have an opportunity to, get time to prepare fully. So they kind of was rushed back. And I think we're kind of seeing the result of that. But I don't think that'll continue throughout the whole season. I think it's probably be, maybe the first month or so. And I think guys are, fit right back in. But right now, it's been an adjustment, man. This is something that nobody's ever had to deal with in NBA history. So it's definitely going to be different. I mean, we could talk about it all day, but that's just what it is.
I was going to mention that to you in terms of some of those players getting off to a slow start, but somebody who hasn't is James Harden, and he's been a very controversial figure, but he's leading the league in scoring. What where do you make of the situation? Because his stats are really good, but yet he's been highly volatile this entire season so far in terms of his trade value. Um, I guess I want to ask, where do you see the situation going? Because my co-host, we've been talking about this week after week after week, and I don't think we can make really heads or tails of the situation just because of, everything that's happened. Do you ultimately see him remaining on the Rockets at the end of the season? Do you think the Houston will be able to get a good enough deal to trade him?
I mean, this is this is just me speaking. It's not reporting, but
Sure.
I think personally that they're gonna have to get rid of him at some point. I don't think it's a rush. I think Houston understands his value, and they're not gonna just take anything. They're probably gonna look at the Milwaukee situation and all that the Bucks got for a guy like Drew Holiday, but no disrespect to Holiday, he's not James Harden. So they're gonna try to really clean the team out, to get this guy. And I think they're not rushing that process. And I mean, he's come out in the season, he's averaged 37 points and 11 assists. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Number one in scoring, number two in assists, which is impressive, But I think they will ultimately end up trading him. But I think they know, like, we're not in a rush. The cards are in their hands, so it's like they're going to get the best situation.
What do you see as the best suits for James Harden as a team? A lot of people were pointing to the Brooklyn Nets, and I don't really see that as a good fit. Am I incorrect there? Do you think it's possible for those three players to coexist? I know once that was brought up as a possibility, there's a lot of excitement, but considering their usage rate and what they do on the court, I don't think it's necessarily the best match. Do you see any other team that might be a good fit for James Harden if he were to be traded?
Man, I think, he's an ultimate scorer, one of the best scorers of all time. I'm not sure about that Brooklyn fit. It just seemed like, even with KD and Kyrie, that's a lot. So adding James Harden to that, I think that's a lot. But in my opinion, he's going to have to change his play style to really adapt and play with, star players. I mean, he's had star players throughout his career, all throughout Houston, and it hasn't worked. So I think he's going to have to change his game. And if he's willing to do that, he's willing to play anywhere. This guy's a former MVP. So it's really dependent upon him. Will he move without the ball? Will you give up some of those ISO situations and get others involved a little more? So I think it's really on him. But I mean, from there, if he's willing to change his game, I mean, he can play anywhere, man. I mean, you can go down the list, Miami, Milwaukee, if he want to change the game, even Brooklyn. But I'm just not sure, how he's able, if he's going to be willing to take that next step and, possibly give up some of those numbers to have more success as a team.
Gotcha. I wanted to kind of shift gears and ask you about a player that a lot of people seem high on, and this is something that we've asked our guests in the past about, and to me, it's really just a mystery. I don't understand why this player is getting that much hype, and that is Ben Simmons. He's been called the next LeBron James, and I don't see it. And I'm honestly asking, what are they seeing, but I'm not seeing in terms of his potential? Because the other night I saw him on Twitter hit a three, and everybody's celebrating like it's the greatest thing ever. But I believe it was his third three ever. I'm like, why is this guy being compared to LeBron when he hit his third three ever in his career? It doesn't make any sense to me logically in terms of comparing both players. So, are you on the Ben Simmons bandwagon, or do you think he's just overhyped?
Man, I think he's still a star talent in this league. He's an all-star caliber player. I don't see superstar though. He's averaging around 14 points, around 10 rebounds, around 7 assists. So he's all around. He's capable of a triple-double every single night. And I think him being 6'10", 240 as a point guard, I think that's where the comparisons are coming in, because we saw Magic, but I mean, him being 6'10", he's even bigger than Magic. So
sure,
I think that's where the hype and everything comes. And then just the overall way he's able to fill the stat sheet and be a triple-double threat every time. That's why the LeBron comparisons are there. But I see an all-star talent, but I don't see superstar. I was out there his rookie year when him and Donovan Mitchell had that back-and-forth rookie beef, so that was kind of fun to be a part of that, when they were kind of beefing on that rookie stuff. So that was pretty cool. But I think he's still, like I said, he's a star talent, but until he takes that next step to really get better at and being a willing jump shooter, I think that he's going to continue to just be a star, not a superstar. But he's still young, man. 24 years old.
That's true.
He has a long way to go in his career. I'm not ready to write him off just yet, but he has to commit to becoming a better shooter, man. I mean, that's just, he has to. But I mean, he is a 6'10" guy, so I mean, historically, you look over the years, a lot of the bigger guys haven't been great shooters, even though he has the capabilities to dribble the ball and pass much better than most guys his size. But I mean, historically, I mean, you look at those big guys, man, they have issues shooting. So I'm not even really sure, how does he become a better shooter? I know he's tried at it. There's been reports that's come out saying mentally he's tried to hire people to make sure, he just gets his mind right with shooting and approaching it that way. So he's going to have to take that next step to become a better shooter to really become a superstar in his league. But I do see him as a star.
In saying that, there's been this kind of side taken between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. If it comes down to picking one player over the other, which side do you land on as the best future for the 76ers?
That's tough, man, because, Joel Embiid definitely is the better player, in my opinion. But the injuries, he can't stay healthy. I mean, when you're building a team, man, he's older. I mean, he's only 26, but he's a couple years over Ben Simmons. And I think if they're going to pick a side, they probably would go Ben over Joel just because of those injuries and those issues he's had pretty much his whole career. But Joel is by far the better player. I feel like, he started this season strong, man, 25-12, this year. And he's already missed a game with a back. I covered one of the games. I believe they were playing Cleveland, and he missed that game with a back. Whatever was going on with his back. But just, those little things, over and over have hurt him throughout his career. Just not being able to stay on the court. But he's definitely he has the ability to be a superstar, if not now.
As a reporter, you mentioned you covered one of his games this season. For yourself, in the midst of this pandemic, I'm sure you're used to actually going to the games and talking to these players one-on-one. What has it been for you just covering the NBA? Have you been doing it mostly remotely, or have you been able to get any press access in these arenas? What has it been for you ever since the pandemic has started?
Yeah, it's been weird, man. Everything's been pretty much through Zoom. Even if you do go cover a game face-to-face, you're not getting face-to-face access to guys. And in our business, that's important. That's how we operate, is building relationships, being around guys. So it's been tougher, but I think it's made me become a better professional because I got to think outside the box in ways to be creative to get access to guys because we're not getting those one-on-ones. We're not at games, in the locker rooms how we were before. And that's something we kind of took for granted, man. So I think 2020 reminded us that our job should be gone tomorrow, man. We got to really appreciate the access we get, the love we get. I'm thankful and fortunate I got an opportunity to cover the All-Star Weekend in Chicago. Who knows when things will just come back to where it's even an All-Star Weekend or just things like that. So I've had to think outside the box. I've had to become a better reporter, but ultimately it's difficult, man, because we're not getting that face-to-face interaction.
I know this might be a difficult question. Forgive me for asking this, but once things get back to normal, to your best knowledge, do you think the NBA will take any of their media protocols that they've enacted and keep them just because it might make their lives easier from a league standpoint? Or do you think ultimately things will get back to normal in terms of how much access you have to the players?
I think the league definitely is going to try to do that because they can more so control the situation. And that's just me speaking. But, we're in the media world. We have people fighting for us, man. We have the Professional Basketball Writers Association. It's all these organizations, National Association of Black Journalists, all these different organizations that are going to continue to fight for us to get that access. So it's not going to be easy. They can't just come and do that, and take it away from us forever. But I do understand from a league standpoint, not allowing reporters right away. I mean, they still got to make sure that it's cool for just players. So I don't have an issue with them taking concerns, even though I love my job. At the end of the day, we're not essential workers. So it's like, as great as that is, I understand until things get back right, it's probably going to be this way, maybe even this year and next year. But of course, I don't think it's going to happen forever. We need to be back in those locker rooms. We need to tell the stories. It's a freedom of speech. It's press. We have rights. It's an amendment. It's an amendment to speak our mind and get access to things. So it's going to be a fight. But I do understand the league from a help standpoint, not letting people right away that aren't essential to the team. So it's going to be a fight that they're not going to be able to take away forever.
Just shifting gears back to the league from just a presentation standpoint, when you're watching these games on TV, what has stood out to you so far? I know for me, since the NBA has moved from the bubble, not having those digital fans, I actually miss them just from just a visual standpoint. What has stood out to you in terms of what you've seen on the court besides just the lack of fans? Do you think that has hurt the atmosphere because they're playing these big arenas, or is ultimately this guy is just playing basketball and when the ball gets tipped out, that doesn't really matter?
I think the league, they're doing a great job. They've added the crowd noise. I think that's a pretty cool effect, to make it feel somewhat normal. But you can never simulate fans being in the arena, that excitement, that energy when it's a big game, the Lakers taking on the Clippers, or going into another arena where the fans are yelling, this guy sucks, or it's just that energy. You're not getting that. So it's cool. Now we're adapting. We understand we're in the midst of a pandemic, but we want those fans back, man. I think the league is doing the best job that they possibly can. I do like the presentation, but nothing beats those fans, man. So, when they're able to get back in those arenas and fill those seats, it's going to be like we're back to normal. Right now, it's like we're just adapting and we're enjoying basketball right now.
And one last question before I let you go. In terms of the leagues at the top of the standings, it's some surprises at the top in terms of seeing the Orlando Magic, the Cleveland Cavaliers, even the Phoenix Suns. Do you see any of those teams being a factor when the playoffs come around, or do you think it's kind of like one of those early start things? Once we get 20 games into the season, things will kind of level itself out.
Yeah, man, it's early. Like you say, Cleveland's at the top, Philly's at the top, Indy, Orlando. Some of these teams are good. I think they're going to be great throughout the season, but it's still so early, man. Guys are like 6 games in. Some of them even 5 games in. So it's way too early to tell. And as I mentioned before, guys are coming off one of the off seasons that's been the most bizarre in NBA history. So it's going to take time to adjust and adapt. And it's a shortened season on top of that. It's 72 games. So I think, guys are going to get in rhythm, and the top teams are going to rise to the top. I mean, right now, if the playoffs start today, Milwaukee's not even in the playoffs. You know what I mean? They're 3-3. So,
yeah.
That's not gonna stand. But some of these teams have gotten better. I do like some of the young pieces that Cleveland has. I like watching them. I like watching Indiana. Obviously, Phoenix, number 1 in the West right now. New Orleans. I mean, some of these teams have gotten better, but it's not really. It's a small sample size, so I don't think that's going to last for everybody.
Well, Eric, thank you very much for coming on to the show. Please plug your social media handles and any projects you're working on for 2021.
Yeah, check me out. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, _Woodyard, WOODYARD. I'm just ready to take it to the next level. This is my second season for ESPN. We're in 2021. Man, let's get it. I'm ready to grind. I'm ready to work. And, I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, no problem, Eric. You've been an awesome guest. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to join the show. Really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Keep up the good work.